Hello and welcome to the Perth Blue Baggers pod. Today we'll be reviewing our round 10 loss to the Sydney Swans, and we'll be previewing our round 11 clash with the GWS Giants. So let's get straight into the review. It was not a very good performance. Once again, the same old second half fade outs was prevalent. I'm sure you can easily add on to that.
Look, last week we talked about how we stayed composed to win a tight match against an opponent who was on a similar place to us on the ladder.
Yeah.
And we talked about how we got challenged and we responded, and how we ground out a tight win. This was, unfortunately, the complete opposite. Mm-hmm. This was the story about how an opponent put pressure on us and we just capitulated. How we lost our composure, how we produced yet another second half fade out to lose another game we really should have won. So this is happening again and again. And it's been a really frustrating year because we seem to be making the same mistakes over and over. And that's why it's been so hard to watch. For 9 out of 10 matches, we've led at half time with just the 4 wins. 4-6.
Yeah.
Just incredibly disappointing. So, this one moment really summed it up for me, I think, where we kicked the ball forward. Harry came steaming up out of the centre. There's no one on him, and the ball bounced straight off his chest.
Oh.
And it was just at a critical moment. The ball went down the other end, they scored. And I don't want to be just harsh on Harry. His teammates all did the same.
Yeah.
You know, if I had $1 for every drop mark, missed target, missed tackle, running past the ball without missing it, without picking up, I'd be a very wealthy man. It just happened all the time.
It was just round 1 all over again.
You know, when are we going to learn? I thought the seeds for the mess were laid in the third quarter, where really I think they probably should have been in front, but they missed some shots.
No, we were lucky to lose by 16.
Yeah.
And it should have been a 30-40 point loss.
It really was. Our second half was poor, really.
Yeah.
They just didn't make us pay in the third quarter, and they did make us pay in the last quarter.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Heaney and Warner had body odour or something, but no one seemed to want to go on them. No one seemed to want to pick them up. They just did what they wanted, you know. Heaney in particular was easily the best player on the ground.
Yeah, no doubt about that. It started with 5 possessions in the first quarter, and then somehow ends up with, 38?
38, you know. Look, our strength, we tend to win the clearances and we tend to win the contested possessions. And honestly, if you're losing those categories in your Colton, you're not going to win the game. No. And guess what? We lost both. And if you look at the discrepancy between the first half and the second half, it'll be enormous. Because we were winning in the first half, but on both those counts, but we got smashed in the second half.
Yeah.
It was, again, that fade out that was very, very frustrating and really hard to watch.
It shows clearly that the midfield was the problem there.
Yeah, I think it was the midfield the problem, but there was problems, across the board, really. I just pointed out Harry, like our 2 of our small forwards barely got a touch, and when they did, they didn't use the ball properly anyway, and they just turned the ball over. So really, we're playing almost with 2 men short. That's such a little impact.
Should we go into the argument about why people are calling for Motlop and Evans to get dropped? There's just simply no other depth we have. They're the best we've got. Because, Williams, Fogarty, they're out. There's no one that can actually replace them. So you can't go being too tall because then there's no one to knock it up around.
We don't want to go any taller. We need pace. We need to move the ball quickly. But when you're having a bad night, you should be putting the pressure on.
Yeah.
And I didn't see the pressure on.
It doesn't take that much skill to do that.
Yeah. We just the pressure acts, we're not there.
Yeah.
So the frustrating thing about the players that were not winning touches is that they weren't tackling either. This is the part that's I find frustrating. If you're not winning the ball, at least tackle. So
Will White, tackle.
Well, Whitehead was very quiet. He had a very quiet game as well. So he had 1 tackle. I think Francis Evans did have 3. So
Evans out of the
4.
3.
So, I mean, there's a few tackles, but
Evans out of the 3 of them was probably the best.
I think, to be honest, none of those 3 players had a big impact on the game. You couldn't say.
No, I don't think they've done enough this whole season, really.
I think White's shown a bit. You know, he's had some games. I just wish he's a bit more accurate in front of goals, but he has shown a bit.
Yeah.
For a guy who just got picked up off the supplementary list, he's shown a bit. And Evans was a late starter as well. But you just want a bit more out of a player for the whole game.
Yeah.
I would have thought.
And then I know that first quarter obviously doesn't determine a match, but the biggest way you can put pressure on is scoreboard. And we did not take all of our chances in the first quarter.
No.
We had plenty of supply going in, but our efficiency was terrible.
I think I read a stat that we had a ton of turnovers in our forward half, and we just didn't get... there was 15 forward half turnovers we manufactured for just 1 goal. In modern football, you've got to score off turnovers.
Yeah. Because
that's the time when you've got all the defenders out of whack, and they can't respond often in time. So our efficiency in the forward line wasn't great either.
Go into the efficiency, please.
Well, yeah.
Let's go into some of these team stats.
I think when you look at the overall efficiencies, you'll see it's pretty embarrassing. So if you go to we can go with the overall team efficiency, but if you look at the players. There's a lot of players who efficiency was pretty poor. Yeah. And players that weren't winning many touches and still inefficient.
28.6 for Motlop is criminal.
Well, yeah, I think he would have had 2 effective possessions in the game. I mean, I could be wrong, but that's what I'm reading.
One handball that went to someone.
So, I mean, look. I hope those guys can bounce back.
Yeah.
I never write it.
There's nothing against them as people.
We just want more out of some of those guys.
So lost disposal count, marks we managed to.
Well, the biggest thing for me
50s
overall is losing your contested possessions and losing your clearances. So we've lost the contested possessions, which we never normally do.
No.
And we've won clearances and lost the game before, but every time we lose the clearances, we lose the game. So
so going into that efficiency going in. So.
No, efficiencies. I think that efficiencies were about the same overall.
Yes.
Oh, the efficiency inside 50 was pretty bad, 40%.
Below the average.
Well, they had 50, so they were above average and we were below average. There's a big difference between 50 and 40. So
that doesn't tell a story with that first quarter, because I'm telling you that was.
Yeah, but I thought, okay, we didn't make the most of our chances in the first quarter, but at least we were dominating.
Yeah.
I think it was the flip side in the back half. They dominated in the third quarter and didn't put the score in the board, so it was the same as us really. But they dominated in the fourth quarter and did put the score on the board.
They did. They dominated in the fourth quarter in just 5 minutes. You knew the game was over in 5 minutes into the last quarter.
Yeah, there was a particularly bad period, I think, where they kicked 4 in a row.
That's all it takes to beat Carlton. That's reality.
Three in a row. Was it 1, 2? Yeah, 3 in a row. It's sort of midway through the third quarter, the fourth quarter.
I think only 3 goals in the second half.
They kicked,
as usual. And then we were probably leading, I think we had 80 minutes to 30 or something like that. We were leading.
Yeah, we led 80 minutes. They led about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I said, the first 3 quarters, we led the whole time or was even.
Yeah.
They didn't lead any time in the first 3 quarters. So... yeah, that's frustrating because it's a game that got away from us. We should have won it. Look, when you look at us winning for 3 quarters, there's players that played well.
Yes.
We'll come to a couple of them.
Let's go straight into votes.
Look, Chera was really good.
Yeah.
He, for me, was the best player for us on the day. He stood up. He even had a good second half. I think he had 10 possessions in the third and 9 in the fourth, and that, for me, was a big deal because he continued to play well even when a lot of other players weren't playing well. He also managed to have a game-high 7 tackles.
That's game high, is it?
Game high. So he tackled. So he gets the most possessions on the field, and he's also tackling the most. So you can win the footy, and do the hard work chasing blokes as well. The two are not mutually exclusive.
So something that hasn't been remarked on about Ches, he went to Dubai or something for, performance, for injury performance or something like that. And he hasn't had an injury concern since.
Oh, he's been...
So,
last year really struggled with his injuries. And this year, he was just a shadow of his former self last year. And he's been much better.
Yeah.
Much better. And this was one of his best games.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really good. I mean, and you could say quite a few things. He had 7 intercepts, which is a lot.
Nice.
One of the highest intercepts. 6 equal team high, 6 inside 50s, equal team high, 6 score involvements.
6 score involvements isn't that much to be a team high.
No. Well, it says something about. I think
only scored
Heaney had
10. Yeah.
So it does show how dominant Heaney was. It was.
It wasn't an inviting contest. I don't think that...
It wasn't a great game to watch,
neutral fans wouldn't have liked that. I was getting frustrated myself with how...
That's scrappy.
Yeah.
It was just sloppy. I know that there was rain that day,
Yeah.
and there was rain up to about maybe an hour before the bounce. But,
it was never rained during the game.
Didn't rain during the game. Yeah, I just thought the skill level wasn't high.
No.
I mean, I know Sydney are grand finalists from last year, but they are down on form.
Yeah.
They lost to Essendon last week, and you saw how bad Essendon were this week.
Yeah.
And they're out of players as well. So, Gwildon's not playing.
I don't think they were that convincing either.
No, I didn't think they were great. I think individually, Heaney was fantastic, and so was Warner, but the team wasn't great. They were lousy.
At this point in time, both of these two teams do not deserve to be in finals.
We certainly don't at the moment.
The top 8 right now is looking
sad.
like the top 8. But, what we learned from last year, things change so rapidly.
Well, if we get it together, if we start playing more consistent, because it's one of those seasons where there's a ton of teams. If they play well, they'll win. If they play poorly, they lose. Because it's not so one-sided. Any team can beat anyone else's. I mean, there's a couple of teams like North and West Coast and Richmond. They're a bit below the others, I still think. Notwithstanding some of them won, but they're not up the same standard week in, week out. There's probably a couple of teams like I think Collingwood's playing pretty well, but most of the teams are beatable, and most teams can win if they play well.
We just saw Melbourne, huge upset against Brisbane.
Yep. I just think it's a really even season, and season's up for grabs, and that's the frustrating thing because we've got the cattle.
Yeah.
I do think we've got the cattle. Maybe our depth in some positions isn't great.
But the small forwards is proving to be probably the biggest concern.
Yeah, just haven't found someone to really land that.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, there's only one... It's up for grabs, that position.
Yeah, well, we keep on recruiting people.
Yeah.
Anyway. Hewitt, I'm giving him 4.
Yeah.
So I've just given 5 to Chera, 4 to Hewitt. Hewitt, another really consistent game. I mean, does he play a bad game this year?
Don't think so. I don't think he has.
He's just been so consistent, I think. So consistent. Look, he is one of the highest position getters. He wins a lot of the football. He used it well. I think he had the most score involvements from memory. He's equal most score involvement with Curnow,
Cripps and Chera.
And he had quite a few. He kind of did everything really. He kind of did everything. Really, really impressive, consistent game as well. Haynes, I'd give him 3.
Deserving.
Another consistent,
Yeah.
really consistent game. Equal highest number of intercept possessions on the ground. His efficiency was one of the highest in the game.
Yeah.
I think even in the fourth quarter, he stood up and played pretty well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was really good. I thought I struggled a little bit after it. And the problem was there were players that had their moments, but I struggled to find that many more that were impactful over the whole game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
agreed.
Cripps played an okay game. I'm giving him 2. I just don't think with his possessions he impacted the game a lot.
He had 55% efficiency.
Yeah. So he's one of our lowest efficiencies. And I think it kind of showed a little bit. I didn't think he had quite the same impact. Look, I did think he fought hard.
Yeah.
And that sort of came through with the 26 touches, 7 clearances, and 7 tackles. I mean, he gives his all. So I've given him 2.
Yeah.
And 1 Kerno. I thought Kerno had a big first half.
Mm-hmm.
Kerno and Harry both had big first halves, and I thought they did a lot. They looked great. I didn't think he actually was okay in the third quarter. He kicked another goal, was all right in the third quarter. Barely seen in the last quarter.
Didn't he have a chance in the last quarter? Missed it.
I think he might have had a chance in the last quarter. I think he had 2 touches all quarter. So
Yeah.
didn't set the world alight in the last quarter. Look, he is far from the only one.
No.
Look, for my underrated one, I'm going for Cooper Lord. He did fade in the second half, but he was very good early.
Yeah.
He started the game really hot and helped set us up with some really good football. I think he's got a lot of talent.
Yeah.
It's one of the sort of I think if he keeps on working on his game, he could be a really good midfielder. So he had the 19 touches, and I thought he was going to blow the game away in the first half. I think he might have had 13 of those in the first half. He did fade a bit, but as one of those new and up and coming players, I thought he showed a bit.
Yeah. Just needs to build a bit of that tank then.
Yeah, you've got to play the full 4 quarters, but it's encouraging signs.
That must probably why he hasn't been, playing out full game. He's been sub. So that's yours. I've gone 5 for Ches, 4 for Cripps. Upon looking at this,
Cripps a bit higher.
I'd say Cripps over. No, I'm gonna give Haynes 4 votes and change Cripps to 3. Someone that you haven't mentioned is Ollie Hollands, so I've given him 2 votes. I thought that he looked very composed most of the game. Yeah, again, he might have probably had a bit of a fade out.
Yeah, I don't think it's good late.
Let me get out his stats. 19 disposals, 5 marks, 7 intercepts, 17 pressure acts, 548 metres gained, 5 inside 50s and 5 rebound 50s. So not bad for him, I guess. And then finally, 1 vote to Hewitt. He could have done better than Cripps, but I don't know. I feel like Cripps with those 2 goals were quite important as well.
Yeah, I think those 2 goals were handy. Yeah. I think I probably only marked down Hollands a little bit myself just because I don't think he's quite late. But he had 7 intercepts, and that was important. I'm always impressed. It's not just the kicks running past. When you're intercepting the football consistently, you're positioning yourself well, and he's playing on the half-back line now, and that's a really important role for him.
Yeah.
So, I think that was very handy.
Into the preview we go. So, what needs to change, and we've basically discussed that. But what needs to happen to beat the Giants?
Oh, it sounds like you're pointing out the obvious, of course, but I think consistent 4 quarters, because I think where we've won, we've played 4 really consistent quarters. It's not just whether you win all those quarters. We got challenged against St Kilda.
Yeah.
But our second quarter, when we got challenged, it was our ability to respond and stay in the hunt.
So,
even when we're challenged. I thought that was impressive. Whereas that last quarter, we just, we really just got overrun, and it was just a really shocking quarter. And you can't have that against a team.
no.
It's also really important because we're 11th at the moment and they're 8th. So we really need, if we're serious about playing finals, this is the kind of match we should win. We also, this is at home. It's at home against the Giants, a non-Victorian team. It's a game you should be winning.
Yeah.
The Giants, look, I reckon they've been really up and down. I think they've got to say they were pretty ordinary.
I think they've underperformed this year.
Got done away last week against...
done at home this week.
Yeah.
To Freo.
Yeah, so
but then they produce a performance like beating Geelong in Geelong.
Well, they beat Geelong in Geelong and they lose at home to Fremantle.
Yeah.
So they must
must
be tearing their heads away.
Us three, GWS, Fremantle and Carlton, we're the most inconsistent teams.
Very inconsistent and very frustrating. So 2 inconsistent teams.
Yeah.
I think we've got to shut down some of their ball winners. I hope we've learned a few things of this reviewing this game, because if Toby Green takes us apart like Heaney does, we're going to be shot. I mean, clearly we've got to play some defence on some of those guys. They've got some talented people. We've got to do some work on them, man them up, and go with a couple of their better players.
Yeah.
So I think again the midfield battle would be really important. I think if we win resoundingly on contested possessions and clearances, we win the game. I think it's that simple. We've got a good defensive setup. We didn't concede a lot of points.
The system does work.
I think our defenders have been out. If you asked me at the start of the season, right, I would have said, defence is probably one of the most worrying areas.
Yeah, I mean,
but really, I think that's been our strongest point.
Even if this season is a failure, I guess you can, and if our defence has been strong throughout the year, I guess you can point towards, well, at least we've, gotten better in that facet.
Yeah, I would think so.
Clearly they've worked on that. Got recruit of Haynes. Really good to see him growing in his role.
Haynes has been great. Silvani's been a revelation there. Those two have been sensational. Weddering's always fantastic.
Yeah.
And then you've got, McGovern. I think's been pretty consistent. I think sometimes he cops a bit of criticism. And he's been he's been okay. I think it's sometimes, I guess, when he's turned the ball over at certain times, that's frustrated people. And he still has a propensity to do that. But he does take the game on.
Sard is an example of someone who takes the game on.
Yeah.
I wouldn't fault Sard either. And Ollie Hollins, David King said, he wouldn't last 5 weeks at halfback. I think he's lasted double that, actually, now.
Yeah. No, and
I think it's been pretty good, so...
Yeah, no, I think, like I said, our back line's been great. I actually think, despite all the criticisms, Harry and Charlie have been all right.
Yeah.
And they haven't blown the world away in terms of goals, but Harry's,
it's getting up there. It's in the top 10 of...
Let's not forget, Harry, 2 of the last 4 weeks, he's been pretty much best on ground.
Yeah.
So I think in the first half he was fantastic. Charlie was fantastic in the first half, though. We didn't see as much of them in the second half. I think Charlie did all right in the third quarter, but not much in the fourth. But I actually think overall for the season they've kicked a few goals. They've been handy, just not quite as much support as we need.
Yeah.
We had a couple of really good games from our smalls. Remember when we had a lot of tackles inside 50?
North.
Right?
North.
I reckon there's a telling stat here, and it's the tackles inside 50. Right? If you look at the tackles inside 50, we had no player, we had one player, Jesse Motlop, with more than one tackle inside 50. And we had five and a 6 per person in some of our other games. Jesse Motlop 2, Will White, Sam Walsh, Harry Mackay, Cooper Lord, Hewitt Durden, and Cripps, 1 each, 1. So overall, that really dropped off, I thought. And given it was a bit of a sloppy game where a lot of dropped marks and balls on the ground and whatever, that should be more tackles inside 50. I reckon that's often a bit of a litmus test for the amount of pressure that we're putting on our opponents.
Yeah.
And there wasn't enough of it.
We succumbed to pressure.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Teams, once that pressure rating probably goes to around 200 max, we're done.
Yeah. So I think we know.
That high.
I think that the boys know where they've got to improve.
Yeah.
There's some really clear things to work on there. And, it's pointing out the obvious. But if we play well, we'll win this. I've got no doubt that we can win it if we play our best. I don't think the Giants are in great form. Don't think we're in mixed form.
Yeah.
But these are the sorts of matches we've got to win. I think we've got a few easier matches coming up too. So if we actually put our foot down,
get out of that more losses than wins sort of thing.
Yeah. So we've got Giants coming up. I think
round 12.
I think I got a feeling we've got a bye in round 12. And I think in round 13.
Why you can't say that the season's over yet.
We've got the Bombers.
They look very ordinary.
Surely, if we can't beat the Bombers, the Bombers were hopeless. Hopeless on the weekend.
I'm glad that they showed their true colours. That was their true colours.
We saw the real Bombers on the weekend. So anyway, look, if we're good enough, the opportunity's there.
Yeah.
So let's hope we can put it on the board.
Yeah. So do some predictions.
I reckon we're going to win by 20 points.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I reckon we're going to win comfortably.
Yeah, I reckon 8 this time. We do hold up amongst the pressure.
We don't tend to win by a lot, do we?
No, we don't. So, unless it's West Coast or North, I guess those are the games when you just have to smash them. You can't really afford to just say, oh, at least we got the 4 points. You kind of need to, because we got them twice. You need to bank up a bit of a percentage there as well.
Yeah. Want to make the most of that.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe. Follow us on Instagram. Until next time, hopefully we come back in a better mood. Up the baggers.
Calm the blues.